Hey everyone, and welcome back. We're about to do a really interesting deep dive today. We're going to be looking at Napoleon Hill's Law of Success, which, if you don't know, is this fascinating book. It's packed with all these insights that he got from interviewing super successful people like Henry Ford and Andrew Carnegie.
Yeah, Hill spent like over 20 years interviewing all these wildly successful people. And he basically took all their wisdom and boiled it down to these, actionable principles that we can all use. So think of this as your cheat sheet to like reaching your full potential.
I love it. All right, so where do we even begin with this? There's so much to unpack here.
Well, Hill kicks things off with this idea of the mastermind principle, which might sound kind of mystical, but it's really about teamwork. But like on a whole new level.
Yeah, I've heard of this before, but honestly, it's always sounded a little vague to me. What does he actually mean by mastermind?
So Hill, he noticed that all these high achievers, they rarely do it alone. Like they surround themselves with this really tight-knit group of brilliant minds, people who challenge them and inspire them, and basically together they create this synergy, something that's way more powerful than just like the sum of its parts.
So it's more than just networking, right? It's about finding your tribe, those people who you really click with, who get your vision, and who can help you grow.
Exactly. And Hill believed that like disharmony was the number one reason why people failed. He saw it again and again. You have all this talent, all this potential, but then there's conflict and lack of unity, and it just holds everyone back.
Oh, for sure. It makes you think about who you surround yourself with, doesn't it? If you've got negative people around you or people who don't believe in you, that's got to be a huge drag on your energy.
Totally. And to show what I mean, Hill uses Henry Ford as a prime example of this whole mastermind thing. Ford was obviously a genius, but he was also incredible at building a team of experts who could like take his vision and execute it perfectly.
So it's not just about being brilliant yourself, but about finding those people who complement your strengths and who can fill in your gaps.
Right, exactly. Ford was all about what Hellisil called organized knowledge. Basically, the idea that success isn't just about individual brilliance, it's about harnessing the collective intelligence of a team that's like totally in sync.
This is making me think about that story Hill tells about the project in New York City, trying to build that huge coliseum.
Oh, yeah, right. Above that existing transit hub.
It was supposed to be this massive undertaking, but it just completely fell apart. Millions of dollars wasted.
Yeah, it's a classic example of how a lack of that unity and a shared vision can just lead to a total downfall. Like you can have all the talent and resources in the world, but if you don't have that foundation of collaboration, it's just not going to work.
So if we're taking notes here, step one is build your mastermind. Find those people who inspire you, get you, and who bring their own amazing talents to the table.
Think of it like assembling like a dream team. Each player has a vital role to play. And together, you're unstoppable.
I love that analogy. Okay, so we've got our mastermind. What's next on Hill's success checklist?
Well, he talks about this thing called having a definite chief aim, which is basically all about having that laser focus on your goals. Like, what do you really want to achieve?
This one really resonates with me because, honestly, I can be a bit scattered sometimes. It's so easy to get distracted by all the shiny things out there.
Oh, I totally get it. But Hill was all about the data. And he analyzed like over 16,000 people looking for what separated the successful ones from the failures. And you know what he found? The failures, they all lacked a clear sense of purpose. Like they didn't have that defined target to shoot for.
It's like trying to wander through a maze without knowing where the exit is, right? You might stumble around for ages, but you're probably not going to get anywhere fast.
Exactly. A definite chief aim acts as your compass. It guides your decisions and your actions and keeps you from getting sidetracked by all that noise.
Well, yeah, for sure. To illustrate this, Hill tells this great story about two wealthy college graduates, right?
Yeah, they inherited all this money, but without a clear purpose, they just ended up wasting it all.
And then he contrasts that story with the story of that self-reliant clerk who was just determined to make it in the publishing industry.
Yeah, he was driven by his definite chief aim, and even though he started with nothing, he just worked and eventually became the head of a major publishing house.
Talk about inspiring. I mean, imagine if you could just distill all your aspirations, all those things you want to achieve, into one crystal clear goal. That's powerful.
And the best part, you can start doing that right now. Like write down your definite chief aim, be super specific, and then review it every single day. Keep that fire burning.
Love it. Okay, so we built our mastermind, we've got our definite chief aim. What's next? What else is standing between us and our dreams?
Well, Hill talks about self-confidence. or rather, the lack of it.
And this is something I think we can all relate to. I mean, who hasn't struggled with self-doubt at some point?
Oh, absolutely. But Hill actually pinpointed 6 basic fears that he believed were holding people back, like big time.
6? Okay, I'm curious. Lay 'em on me.
So he's got poverty, old age, criticism, loss of love, ill health, and death. Basically all the big ones, right?
Yeah, those are some pretty universal fears.
Yeah.
But it's not enough just to acknowledge them, is it? How do we overcome them?
Well, Hill went deeper than that. He talked about this idea of social heredity.
Social heredity. What's that all about?
It's this idea that our fears, they aren't always even ours. Sometimes they're like echoes of anxieties that have been passed down from our families or, from society in general. Think about it. Those fears we have about money or getting old or failing, sometimes they're not even ours. They're like these inherited anxieties.
It's like a really interesting way to look at it.
So recognizing that is the first step. And then to combat those fears, Hill was a huge fan of self-suggestion. Basically, it's all about reprogramming your subconscious mind, like feeding it these positive, empowering beliefs.
Like rewiring your brain for success by what? Like saying positive affirmations and visualizing yourself crushing those goals.
Exactly. And Hill, he loved a good story. And to illustrate this, he tells this one about a salesman who used self-suggestion to overcome his fear of rejection.
Oh, I've got to hear this. What did he do?
So this guy had this list of clients that all the other salespeople were like, oh, no, those are impossible. There's no way you're going to sell to them.
Yeah, we've all had those clients. What did he do?
Well, instead of giving in to that, he went to this park and just read his list of clients over and over and over. And he kept repeating this affirmation. You will purchase advertising space from me before the end of the month. Like he literally visualized himself closing those deals.
No way. Did it work?
It totally did. He ended up selling to 3 of those impossible clients on his very first day.
That's amazing. Talk about the power of belief. It shows you that you really can rewire your brain for success if you consistently feed it those positive messages.
Totally. It's about taking control of your thoughts and replacing those negative limiting beliefs with ones that will empower you to reach your definite chief aim.
I love that. Okay, so we've got our mastermind, our definite chief aim. We're working on our self-confidence. And now I think Hill throws us a bit of a curveball.
He does. He talks about the importance of the habit of saving.
Saving. I mean, that makes sense in a general sense, but we're talking about achieving massive success here. Shouldn't we be thinking bigger?
That's what you'd think, right? But Hill actually learned the importance of saving through his own struggles with poverty, which he talks about in the book. He saw these wealthy classmates just squander their inheritances, but then he also saw this self-reliant clerk who, through saving diligently, was able to build a path to financial independence.
So it's not just about the money itself. It's about what saving represents, right? Like the discipline and the foresight.
Exactly. Hill realized that saving had all these psychological benefits that he didn't expect. Like it boosted his self-confidence, and it actually made him more attractive to lenders and investors. They saw him as responsible and trustworthy.
It's like planting a seed. It might seem small at first, but with consistent nurturing, it can grow into this massive tree.
I love that analogy. And, Hill always emphasizes that saving isn't about deprivation. It's about consciously managing your resources.
He tells this great story about a young inventor.
Yeah. He saved small amounts from each paycheck, which at the time seemed insignificant, but eventually that became the foundation for his financial independence. He was able to invest in his inventions and build a successful business.
So it's like those small, consistent actions, they really do add up over time.
Exactly. And remember, even if you're not starting with a lot, just cultivating that habit of saving can have a huge impact.
So it's about more than just financial security. It's about building that mindset of self-reliance and abundance.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Okay, so we've talked about mindset, but now let's talk about action. Hill's 5th principle is all about initiative and leadership. This is where we turn all those great thoughts into tangible results.
Exactly. Initiative is all about taking charge of your destiny. Don't wait for opportunity to come knocking. Go out and create those opportunities. Like Bill Gates,
Yeah, dropping out of Harvard to build Microsoft. Definitely a bold move.
Totally. And closer to home, Hill shares his personal story of leaving a secure job to start his own business. It was a risk, for sure, but he was driven by his initiative and this unwavering belief in himself.
It's so inspiring to see how these successful people just weren't afraid to take that leap of faith and just trust their gut.
And it doesn't have to be some grand life-altering decision. Initiative can be demonstrated in everyday things. Like he tells the story about his secretary who, through her initiative, transformed her role completely.
Really? What did she do?
So she started out just taking dictation, but she took it upon herself to study Hill's writing style. And eventually she started drafting letters and handling correspondence. She went way above and beyond her assigned duties.
And Hill was impressed.
Oh, totally. He was like, wow, look at this initiative. It just goes to show you that you can create those opportunities even in seemingly ordinary situations.
This makes me think about all those times I've hesitated to take on something new because I was afraid of failing or stepping outside my comfort zone.
Oh, I feel you. But that's where the leadership part comes in. It's about having the courage to step up, take risks, and inspire others to do the same.
Okay, before we move on, let's do a quick recap. We've covered the mastermind principle, the importance of a definite chief aim, cultivating self-confidence, the unexpected power of saving, and the transformative impact of initiative and leadership.
Wow, that's a lot. And each of these principles builds upon the others. They all work together.
That's what I love about this book. It's not just a random collection of tips. It's like this holistic philosophy for success. And there's still so much more to uncover. Next time, we're going to delve into the incredible world of imagination.
Hill believed that anyone can develop their imagination, not just creative geniuses.
I'm intrigued. Can't wait to hear more about that.
Get ready to unlock your creative potential.
All right, so we're back and ready to dive into the next principle from Napoleon Hill's Law of Success, imagination. Now, I'll admit, when I hear the word imagination, I think of artists and inventors, those super creative types. Not really myself.
Yeah, I get it. But Hill actually believed that anyone can develop their imagination. It's not just for, those born geniuses.
Really? So it's not some magical gift. We can actually train ourselves to be more imaginative.
Exactly. It's more like a mental muscle that you can strengthen through practice, just like hitting the gym.
Okay, so I'm all for a good mental workout. But where do we even start? How do we flex those imagination muscles?
Well, Hill was a big believer in learning from others. He said, look at those who have already achieved amazing things using their imagination. Study them.
Like who? Give me an example.
Remember that story about the young man who was determined to work for Thomas Edison?
Oh, yeah, the one who basically camped out in Edison's office until he got hired. That takes some serious guts.
Right. He had no formal qualifications, but he knew he had to stand out, so he used his imagination to create that opportunity for himself. He refused to give up until Edison gave him a chance.
And it worked. Edison was so impressed by his persistence that he hired him. That's such a great example of thinking outside the box. It shows you that you don't always have to follow the traditional path.
Exactly. Sometimes you have to create your own path. And then there's the story of James J. Hill, the railroad tycoon.
Oh, yeah, the one who built the Great Northern Railway.
Yeah, he's another great example of the power of imagination. He had this vision of this massive railway network connecting the Atlantic and Pacific coasts way before it became a reality.
I mean, talk about a grand vision. But how did he actually make it happen? It's one thing to imagine it, but it's another thing entirely to actually build it.
Well, Hill's vision was so clear, so compelling, that he was able to convince other people to invest in his dream. He literally imagined the Great Northern Railway into existence. It's proof that imagination can be this powerful force for shaping the world around us.
So it's not just about having these grand ideas, it's about bringing them to life, making them real. How do we bridge that gap between imagination and reality?
That's the key question, right? Well, Hill saw imagination as kind of an assembly room, a place where you take all these old ideas and rearrange them into new combinations.
Like a mental Lego set, taking those building blocks of existing knowledge and then using your imagination to build something completely new and innovative.
Exactly. And here's a challenge for you. Use your imagination to turn failures and mistakes into valuable assets. Hill saw setbacks as opportunities for growth, a chance to come up with new solutions.
This reminds me of that saying, necessity is the mother of invention. When we're faced with challenges, that's when our imagination really kicks into high gear.
Totally. And to really ignite your imagination, Hill suggested always keeping a notebook handy and jotting down any new ideas that pop into your head, no matter how small or insignificant they might seem at the time.
That's great advice. It's all about staying curious, right?
Yeah.
And being open to new possibilities.
Absolutely. And this whole idea of being open to new ideas ties in perfectly with Hill's next principle, which is enthusiasm.
Oh, yeah, enthusiasm.
Ew.
I love that one. It's contagious, isn't it? That's that spark that draws people in and makes things happen.
Totally. But Hill believed that the key to genuine enthusiasm is sincerity. Like, it can't be fake, it has to come from a place of real passion.
So it's not about putting on a show. It's about truly believing in what you're doing.
Exactly. He was fascinated by Shakespeare's Mark Antony, like how he was able to sway the Roman crowd to his side using this really powerful combination of genuine emotion and carefully crafted language.
Wow, that's a pretty high bar. But it makes you realize how powerful that kind of authentic enthusiasm can be. When you really believe in something, it just shines through, and people are naturally drawn to that.
Absolutely. And Hill, you know he had a personal experience with this,
He
right?
did. Tell me about it.
He actually landed a magazine editorship just through his sheer enthusiasm and self-belief, even though he didn't have the typical qualifications for the role.
That's incredible. So passion and drive can sometimes outweigh experience.
They totally can. And he also told a story about this incredibly successful magazine saleswoman who used her genuine enthusiasm to win over even the most skeptical customers. She wasn't just selling them a product, she was sharing her genuine passion, and that made all the difference.
So it's about finding that thing that lights you up, the thing that makes you come alive, and letting that passion fuel your actions.
I couldn't have said it better myself. Now, while enthusiasm is awesome and can really be a driving force, it's also super important to cultivate self-control, which is Hill's next principle. It's about keeping those emotions in check, especially the negative ones.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. It's like having a powerful engine but needing a skilled driver to control the car. What are some of the things that can derail us, emotionally speaking?
Hill talks about these 7 negative emotions that he called the 7 deadly horsemen.
Intolerance, revenge, greed, envy, suspicion, jealousy, and uncontrolled sex desire. Pretty heavy stuff.
Wow, those are some big ones. How do we even begin to deal with all of that?
Well, it all starts with awareness, like which of these do you struggle with the most? Once you can identify your own personal weaknesses, you can start developing strategies to manage them more effectively.
So it's not about suppressing those emotions entirely, but about learning to control them so they don't control you. Exactly. And to illustrate this point, Hill shares a story about a time when he lost his temper with a janitor. He let his emotions get the best of him and ended up looking pretty foolish.
Oh, we've all been there.
Yeah,
It's humbling, right? Those moments when we realize we haven't quite mastered our emotions yet.
totally. The key is to learn from those experiences and try to do better next time. Hill challenged us to take an honest look at ourselves and see where we might be susceptible to those deadly horsemen. It's all about self-awareness and developing those healthy coping mechanisms.
So we've explored the power of imagination, the importance of enthusiasm, and the necessity of self-control. What's next on our journey through the law of success?
While Hill's next principle might seem a little counterintuitive at first glance, it's called the habit of doing more than paid for.
Hold on a second. Isn't that like setting ourselves up for burnout? Why would we want to work harder than we're being paid for?
I know, right? It seems like a recipe for exhaustion.
Yeah.
But Hill actually believed that this was a key strategy for unlocking success. Like, it goes against our typical transactional mindset,
Yeah.
where we're conditioned to just do the bare minimum.
Yeah, you pay me, I work. Simple as that.
Right. But Hill challenges us to see work as more than just a transaction. He says, look for ways to contribute value beyond just getting that paycheck.
So it's about shifting our mindset from what's in it for me to how can I add value?
Exactly. Hill believed that by consistently going above and beyond, we demonstrate our worth to our employer, but we also cultivate this mindset of abundance and generosity, which actually opens doors to all sorts of opportunities.
Then it's like a win-win. We benefit and our employer benefits.
Exactly. And he'll actually have a great anecdote to illustrate this point. He talks about how early in his career, he landed this amazing job with a coal company, even though he was a struggling writer at the time.
How did he do that?
Well, he volunteered to write articles for their trade journal. Even though it wasn't part of his initial agreement, he was just willing to go that extra mile.
And that impressed them.
It totally did. The company president saw his initiative and his willingness to contribute, and he ended up offering Hill a position that paid way more than he was making before.
Wow, that's a great example of how going above and beyond can really pay off, literally.
Totally. And this principle doesn't just apply to the corporate world. It's relevant to all areas of life. Whether you're a student, an entrepreneur, or even a stay-at-home parent, there are always opportunities to go the extra mile.
It's about showing that you're committed, that you're willing to do what it takes to make things happen.
Exactly. Remember that whole idea of compound interest? Well, it applies here too. Just like those small, consistent savings can lead to financial abundance, those small acts of service, done consistently over time, they can build a reputation for excellence and open doors to incredible opportunities.
So it's not about seeking recognition. It's about creating a positive impact and letting those actions speak for themselves.
Beautifully said.
We've covered a lot of ground here, from the power of imagination and enthusiasm to the importance of self-control and the unexpected benefits of doing more than paid for. It's been a really insightful journey so far.
And we're not done yet. In the final part of our deep dive, we're going to explore some of Hill's principles that are often overlooked but super important, like personal integrity, tolerance, cooperation, and the golden rule.
Okay, so we're back for the final part of our deep dive into Napoleon Hill's Law of Success. And we're getting into some really interesting territory now, right? Like, we've talked about mindset, we've talked about action, but now it feels like we're getting to the heart of it all.
We are. This is where it gets personal, We're talking
Mhm.
about integrity, those core values that shape who we are, not just what we achieve.
Yeah, it's like success is great and all, but it's got to be built on a solid foundation, right? It can't just be about chasing those external rewards. So what's the first principle Hill highlights in this realm?
Cooperation. He was adamant that real lasting success, it's not just about individual achievement, it's about working together. Like whether you're building a business, a family, or even trying to solve those big global problems, cooperation is essential.
That makes sense. There's that African proverb, right?
Yeah.
If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
Exactly. And Hill actually saw cooperation as like a fundamental law of nature.
Oh, interesting. How so?
He was fascinated by how nature thrives on this intricate web of cooperation, like each element working together to create balance.
Right.
The bees pollinating the flowers, the trees providing oxygen, everything interconnected.
Wow, that's a powerful image. It's like we're all part of this grand symphony, and when we work together, we create something beautiful and harmonious.
Yeah, exactly. And think about some of humanity's greatest achievements, like building the pyramids or the moon landing or developing those life-saving vaccines. None of that was accomplished by a single person working alone.
You're right. It took teams of brilliant minds all working together, sharing their knowledge and expertise.
Exactly. And Hill believed that our greatest potential lies in that collective effort, in harnessing the power of many minds working in unison.
Okay, so cooperation is crucial for those big world-changing achievements. But how does this principle apply to our everyday lives, in those smaller interactions?
Hill was a huge advocate for strong relationships, whether it was with family, friends, or colleagues. He believed those relationships were the foundation for a truly successful and fulfilling life.
So it's about recognizing that we're all connected, that we need each other, and that by supporting each other, we all rise together.
Beautifully said. And, hand in hand with cooperation comes tolerance. Hill actually considered intolerance to be one of the most destructive forces out there. Like, it leads to prejudice, conflict, and even war.
Yeah, especially in today's world, where we're constantly bombarded with different opinions and viewpoints, tolerance seems more important than ever.
It is. And Hill wasn't just talking about tolerance between nations or political parties. He was talking about tolerance in our everyday interactions, like
Right.
even with those people who we might disagree with or who come from different backgrounds.
It's about being open-minded, right?
Yeah,
And recognizing that just because someone sees the world differently than you do, it doesn't mean they're wrong.
exactly. It's about cultivating empathy, trying to understand where the other person is coming from and treating them with respect, even if you don't see eye to eye.
It's about creating a space where we can learn from each other and grow together despite our differences.
Beautifully said. And, weaving together all these principles of personal integrity is the golden rule. Treat others as you would like to be treated.
Yeah, the golden rule. It's such a simple concept, but so powerful. We've all heard it a million times, but do we really live by it?
That's the challenge, right? But Hill saw the golden rule as not just some moral guideline, but as a practical principle for success. Like, he believed that by treating others fairly, kindly, and with respect, you create this positive ripple effect that ultimately benefits you as well.
So it's not about being nice just for the sake of being
Mhm.
nice, but it's actually a smart strategy for success.
Exactly. He gives all these examples in the book of people who achieved remarkable success by adhering to the golden rule. They built their businesses on integrity, treated their employees and customers with respect, and they reaped the rewards. And he warned against those who took shortcuts, those who tried to manipulate or exploit others for personal gain. He said ultimately that kind of behavior always backfires.
So it's about playing the long game, right?
Yeah.
Building genuine connections and creating that win-win scenario where everyone benefits.
Exactly. Hill saw the golden rule as the key to a life that's not just successful, but also significant. A life that leaves a positive impact on the world.
So there you have it. We've explored the core principles of Napoleon Hill's Law of Success. It's a powerful philosophy that goes beyond just achieving material wealth. It's about personal growth, ethical conduct, and using your success to make a difference.
It's about leaving the world a better place than you found it.
And what's really amazing is that this book was written almost a century ago, but it's just as relevant today. These principles are timeless. They can help us navigate the complexities of modern life, achieve our goals, and create a legacy that we can be proud of.
Absolutely. They're a blueprint for a life of purpose and meaning.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I have one final question for you, our listeners. Which principle resonated with you the most? What's one action you can take today to apply these principles in your own life?
Think about it. Choose one principle that speaks to you and start putting it into action. You might be surprised by the amazing changes that unfold.
Thanks for joining us on this journey through Napoleon Hill's timeless wisdom. Until next time, keep seeking knowledge, keep asking questions, and keep diving deep.